Okay, I'm live. It's 7/19/10/26, 2023, and I'm going to go right to this because we have breaking news in the manhunt for the suspect in the shooting. So let's go here.
The red lights of multiple drones flying overhead.
So apparently they are in a location in outside of Lewiston, I think, surrounding a house, and they are telling this guy to come out with his hands up. So
Know that there were helicopters and there was even a plane that was up above
Lisbon, Maine.
too. And Lindsay, forgive me if you can still hear me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm just trying to listen to what the officers are saying.
Whit, give us a sense of the house. Are there any lights on inside of the house, or the house is completely dark? What are you seeing?
From my vantage point, I can't see any lights on inside the house. Most of the light that we're seeing is from spotlights that the police vehicles. Wait, more commands. We don't want to hurt anyone. We need you to come outside now. We do not want to hurt anyone. So they're really, it appears as if officers are being patient with this person that they believe is inside the home. We did hear earlier, they said Robert Card by name.
Hey, Charlotte, how are you? Hey, Mecky, how are you? I think so.
They said, we know you're in there. That, of course, is the 40-year-old suspect who's accused of carrying out this deadly rampage. And Lindsay, just to finish your point, no, we do not see any lights on inside the home, but we did have producers who were coming to this property over the past few days. And in fact, one of our producers was chased off the property, didn't know somebody was there. And then somebody came out, a woman, and asked our producer to leave. And of course, we do that. Wasn't clear if that was a family member, but it was this exact same home. So just a day ago, somebody was living inside that home that officers are now surrounding. So again, we don't know exactly what's going on, but it appears as if at least officers think that they have someone cornered in this home at the moment.
So apparently they were here at this location a little while ago, and then within the last few minutes or so, they came back, and now they're yelling into the house with a loudspeaker to come out with hands up. So I'm assuming that this is this guy here. But this is live video from ABC.
This house, and remind me, Will, if you're there, I'm going to ask you live, Will, our producer here, how far is this house? We've been driving around quite a bit today between Lewiston and then Lisbon, where the suspect's vehicle was found. And this area is what, like another 10 miles away from where that is?
Yes. About 15.
This 15 miles away from where the shootings occurred. And there, Lindsay, there are multiple homes tied to the suspect in this same neighborhood. So we were actually, right before our World News live shot, we were at a different home. And there was a lot of activity there. We saw SWAT teams. We saw police officers carrying long guns. And so we were there getting ready to do some live shots. And that's when we heard the reports of the explosions at this property. And we all rushed over here along with a lot of other reporters. But again, this has kind of been the situation over the past 24 hours. Something happens in one part of town. You see a bunch of police officers and vehicles, and everybody races over there to see what happens. It turns out to be nothing. But this is the most intense development that we have seen so far. A full column
and we
of
know
SWAT
that
vehicles and police vehicles coming through. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
we know that you've been.
Yeah, that's the rumor, I guess. There was some explosions going on. Somebody said something about grenades or something like that, but I didn't hear that. So this is just breaking news. This came out a few minutes ago. So let me, I want to go here really quickly. So this is the area here. Here's where the shootings took place, up here. And these are the two shootings. So they're in this area here. And I'm over down in here somewhere. So I'm going to go back to live here. I just had my third cup of coffee, so I should be good. Oops.
That we're seeing, we believe, are spotlights. We're doing this for our safety and everyone else's safety. Again, they're being very patient. They said we would like to speak with you. So trying to engage in a conversation with this individual.
And so it does sound that they are very confident that the suspect is likely inside of that home. As far as the explosions that you heard, perhaps from that home or a nearby home earlier, have you gotten any sense of what that was about?
Yes, we did get some reports from law enforcement sources that those were likely flashbang grenades that they said were often standard operating procedure with this type of search. They would go in, they'd make the loud noise, they would check to see if there was any response inside that home. But at that time, again, there was no...
Thank you guys for coming in.
Follow-up from law enforcement as to whether or not they even found something inside the home. And we know that scenes similar to that did play out at multiple properties in this area associated with the suspect. And again, things have gone quiet again for just a moment. Oh, go ahead.
They had a press conference too a little while ago. I didn't cover that because it was basically just a bunch of bullshit, and I didn't feel like I mean, it was just a bunch of political shit, I think. So,
but to my left here, basically open fields. There is one home behind us here, and a bunch of reporters are essentially set up near the driveway of that home. But it's pretty much open fields as far as the eye can see. We have a main road that comes through, and it's just dotted with properties here and there. But beyond what appears to be, and it's hard to tell, grassland.
Hello, Dandy. How are you? Hey, Hoosier, what's up, buddy? A lot of shit going on today, man. Between Delphi and this.
Is that this is a guy with military experience, with training as a weapons instructor, and a lot of knowledge about the backwoods of this area. And so they had all these different.
Hoosier Cold Case is awesome. He's a great YouTuber. He does fantastic lives. Great guy. Absolutely. Check him out.
Here we are at the end of the day, appearing to be at the property of this suspect.
And Whit, for those who are just joining us, I mean, this is really, as far as breaking news goes, this is riveting. We're here, you're there on the scene as this is unfolding. Just want to reset for a moment. For those who are just joining us, you were there when the SWAT teams first started rolling up. Just kind of take us back from the beginning of what happened at this house.
Yeah, and again, to remind our viewers here, part of the reason why we're in the dark,
Yeah, Ruckus is awesome. Ruckus is from Southie, Boston. He's one of those guys, but he's a good guy. Just a little bit too Irish for me, but good guy.
There were loud bangs heard from this home. Law enforcement told us that that was likely part of an FBI search and was standard procedure. Not clear if they found anything. So we came to this location, but then everything, Lindsay, cleared out. All the vehicles got in their line and they drove away. There were just a few officers that were essentially still staying in the property. And then suddenly this whole column came back, and you can see some of those. It's still dark, but this street, this main road, is dotted with a number of law enforcement vehicles, including some heavily armored SWAT vehicles. And we were watching this play out, and it was all slow and methodical and calm at first. But then we saw the officers raise some drones into the air. And again, we were trying to see in the darkness. And then we saw some shadows get out of the armored vehicles, and a whole line of armed officers carrying long guns march off into the meadow. And we were like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? But there was very little information coming from law enforcement at the time. Now you can hear a helicopter is coming through as well. And so periodically we've seen the helicopters, we've heard the helicopters.
I wonder if they use tear gas anymore. I wonder if they're gonna.
Probably not with this cell phone light, but there's at least one drone. There have been multiple drones that they've put up that have been circling the property. But what's so remarkable about this, Lindsay, I mean, you and I have covered so many SWAT standoffs over the years. Many of them are high intensity, anxiety. Things can like play out in a flash. Things can go wrong quickly. This is remarkably calm.
Yeah, Mecky's awesome too. She, the Think Tank is an awesome channel. I don't have the link, but whoever does, you can post any link in here you want, unless it's like, not a good link.
You know you're in there. Come out with your hands up. We don't want anybody to get hurt. Asking him if anybody else is inside the home. Then it goes quiet, and then we hear these commands repeated again. And that's pretty much how it's played out.
And we're just going to ask you to stand by for a moment. Of course, just.
I believe Charlotte's in England, somewhere south England. It's always good to have everybody here.
For joining us. You've been hearing reporting from Whit Johnson outside of the home where police seem to be trying to conduct an arrest. What's your impression from what you've witnessed so far?
So the difference between what Whit apparently saw earlier, where they used flashbangs to go into locations.
Thank you, Dandy.
They actually believe he is in there. And because of the type of weapon that he had in these shootings, and maybe he has other AR-15s or other weapons, the best thing to do is to try to talk him out initially. So what you do is, in a stealthy fashion, you get into position. Then you get the hostage negotiators to start communicating with him. If Whit can actually hear them, I don't know if they're using a bullhorn, they're just talking through a door, whatever it might be. You have to have cover and concealment, obviously, to do that, because you just don't know how he's going to react. But the key is to try to get him into a dialogue. Lindsay, the only way you can typically talk people out is to actually get them to talk to you. What's going on? How are you feeling? Et cetera. I haven't heard, obviously Whit would know, any reaction from
I mean, if he's alive,
from
right?
him.
I haven't heard him say anything, so I don't know if the guy's alive or not.
At some point, they'll stop and they'll make a dynamic entry and go from there. The other thing they're doing, Lindsay, is figuring out ways to see inside the house. There are micro cameras you can run under doors. You can run through walls silently and see if you can figure out, A, where he is in the house, and B, does he have any weapons or weapons near him? Because that's going to be the real key.
Hello, Louise. How are you? Thank you, Charlotte.
You don't have to do that if you can actually talk him out. So far, this is pretty textbook of how to do this, and I'm pretty impressed of how they're doing it.
Let me know if the volume's good.
And you said at some point they would have to make an entry. At what point do they decide, after they're trying to do this kind of one-way negotiation, if he doesn't respond, at what point do they decide that they need to go in?
Let's hope they get this guy, man.
They're going to decide to go in once they feel like they have at least some intelligence. My sense would be before they even went to this house, they would have a schematic of it. Where are the rooms? Is there a basement? Are there closets you could go into? Is there an attic, etc.? So where conceivably is...
I'm going to hide my face because I'm going to smoke.
Is he? If you have that sort of information, and through some techniques with cameras and mics, you might figure out where he is.
And
in the
Brad,
house,
if
as
I can
mentioned
just ask
earlier.
you just to stand by just for a moment, Brad, because we're going to come back to you, but do need to get back out on the scene for a moment with Whit Johnson. Whit, just wanted to get an update on what you're seeing and hearing.
Well, Lindsay, in the past few minutes, as you were speaking there, the chopper has come back over and it started circling the scene, but the commands have stopped. We haven't heard any voices coming from the scene up there where you see those flashing lights. We do see a little bit of movement there. But this is kind of how it's been. We've heard some commands. The only confirmation, if you even want to call it that somebody is inside that property was the command from the officer himself who said, "Robert Card, we know you're in there. Come out with your hands up," saying, "We don't want anybody to get hurt," giving him instructions to come near a vehicle. And we heard that repeatedly, but so far, and Brad Garrett pointed this out, so far, at least from our vantage point, we have not heard any confirmation that somebody has responded from inside that home. So again, from what we can hear, I don't know, a couple hundred yards down the road, one-way commands from police officers into that property associated with the primary suspect.
And so we know that you have the drones there, you have the chopper up ahead. On the ground, does it seem like it's surrounded? Are people actually, do you have the SWAT team members actually out of their vehicles and surrounding the home?
Oops.
Exactly. So, Lindsay, when they came up in their vehicles at first, we saw them. They sat in the vehicles for a while. They moved the media, the reporters out of the street. They immediately told us we had to turn out our lights. Again, that's why we're speaking from a cell phone flashlight. But then we could see the shadows of the doors opening on the armored vehicles, and we could see the SWAT officers getting out of those vehicles and quietly and slowly, methodically marching off into the fields. And that was the last we saw them. They just sort of disappeared into the darkness of the horizon. Now, that would give us the sense, to answer your question, that they were surrounding that property, because we know the property is up the road, and it seemed like there was, as if they were trying to approach it with those SWAT officers from the left flank of the home. Again, it's hard to see in the dark, but clearly there were officers.
I just posted the think tank, Frankie Rose.
And now, once again, the helicopter is back overseeing the property.
It is interesting that we are no longer hearing those commands, at least at this point, that it seems like things have gone quiet by there. Curious to get a sense of, like, how many squad cars, for example, are there? I know it's dark and difficult for you to see, but just to kind of get...
It sucks, too, because I just shut off the flight simulator thing.
I would say at least a dozen, if not more. Maybe I can check with our producers. Did you count how many vehicles? I know we were trying to count as the vehicles rolled up. Roughly a dozen vehicles that rolled up. And this was a mix of different type of law enforcement vehicles. You can see the heavily armored SWAT trucks that had the lights and, you know, and the big armor on them, and all the officers inside, and then regular squad cars. We also saw some larger vehicles that clearly were used as part of the equipment that was used for this kind of search. So truly a variety. And the interesting thing is, throughout the day here, Lindsay, we've followed some of these vehicles to different properties. There was another home associated. Excuse me, I'm just listening for a second. There was another home associated with this suspect where we were earlier today. And again, there was an armed presence of law enforcement officers there. And that's where we were getting ready to go live before we heard the reports of the explosions happening at this house. But Lindsay, this is really just an intense and dramatic turn of events, because it really seemed for a moment there that whatever was happening here was over. Police packed up.
Hey, Lynn, how are you? Thank you for coming in. I'm trying to do the flight radar thing here. Thank you, everybody,
they all
for coming
came back, and it started all over again. But it's important to point out, and I like the question that Brad Garrett posed is, you know, have we heard a response from the suspect? Again, from our vantage point, there's no confirmation that there is someone inside that home other than the one-way conversation that we've heard from the law enforcement officers.
And just, we're going to let you go, Whip, but just one last question. Just give us a sense of the time frame, because you said that everything had gone quiet. It seemed that the police cars had gone away and then all of a sudden returned. So about how much time have they been there and the negotiation process?
I would say that they've been here. I'm just looking at my clock right now. I'd say that it was about the last 40 minutes that they've been here. It was like 7 o'clock, right before we were ready to come on the air with you, Lindsay, when suddenly this whole line of vehicles came back. But again, in the beginning, we were just curious about it. Like, well, why'd they come back? They weren't, rushing with the flashing lights and blaring horns. They just calmly drove up the road in a line, got out of the car, and circled the home. So it went from like 0 to 60 in a second, and that's when we started hearing the commands.
And when you took your earpiece out a moment ago, were you hearing?
So they were here a while ago. What did I just do?
And dangerous. At least 20 people have been killed. Dozens of people are injured. All of this unfolding in the small city of Lewiston, Maine, a college town. The first shooting scene, a children's event at a bowling alley.
And in recent hours, police have revealed several new details about the person of interest in this case and his past. This morning, a mass shooting tragedy unfolding in Maine.
Okay, hold on a second. I think I just lost it. Hold on. Live. Let's do live.
Out here, if you listen, you can hear two.
Joanna, if you can still hear us, we kind of lost your signal there. Lost your microphone.
Okay, I got it back. Hello, Karen.
Your battery in your mic might have died. It's unclear. Anyway, we'll get back to her if we can from our sister station. Oh, we may have just heard you for a moment there, Joanna. Are you still there?
Can you hear me?
We can now. Yep, we can now.
Yes, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
That'd be great. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So as our
No, we can't hear you at all.
officials are asking all. Well, that's why it's so dark out here. We see some helicopters. I've counted 2 circling overhead, but I haven't heard any megaphones. I haven't heard any yelling. It has been a little bit quiet while we've been out here. But again, we are standing by, seeing if anything happens. And as soon as it does, we'll be sure to let you know. But we are at the suspect's father's house in Bowdoin. Again, this is Joanna Boris, live in Bowdoin.
All right, Joanna. Thank you very much. Keep us posted. Obviously, we have eyes on you right now, although we can't quite see you in the dark. And we understand, as Dan, you were just talking about that exact issue. Why they ask local reporters and TV crews to shut those lights off.
It's all for safety, right? I mean, we always talk about when we see SWAT teams across our state, and we have to cover that. They don't want us to show strategic movements on our air, so that somebody who may be watching our air could get the upper hand on them. So those are the types of things that law enforcement try to do to try to make sure that they are able to do what they can, do their due diligence, search the areas without interference.
And the commissioner was asked this morning as well, how
So they're in Bowdoin, Maine. I don't know where the Lisbon thing came from, but they're in Bowdoin.
Yeah, Monmouth to Bowdoin, and he would not answer that question. Obviously, they don't want to give anything away. So they know what they know behind the scenes. They're obviously going to these places for a reason.
And one thing I'm just noticing, looking at the clock, guys, is we're at about the 24-hour mark from yesterday, about 24 hours and 30 minutes or so that this manhunt has been going on. And obviously a lot of resources going into it still at this hour.
Yeah, and again, we continue to monitor this, folks, because again, this is important. There is a suspect considered armed and dangerous, accused of killing 18 people in our state a little more than 24 hours ago, still on the loose tonight. A massive manhunt is underway. So in that context, there is still a risk to life and limb in our communities tonight. There is a suspected killer on the loose. To the best of our knowledge, state police are at least checking this particular spot, and with good reason. It appears to be linked to Robert Card and his family. That is why they're paying particular attention to this home on Meadow Road in Bowdoin. Whether or not he's in fact there, whether or not this is going to lead to an arrest in minutes or even hours, we've all covered standoffs, quite frankly,
They can go
or even when
on
they're absolutely sure
all
that
day.
person's inside. It can take
Overnight,
hours, all
yeah.
night.
Because the goal for a standoff or a confrontation like this is to take the person into custody without hurting anybody.
Yep.
And the state has very talented crisis negotiators, and Marissa has worked extensively.
I'm
looking
confused now
at
because I
how
think
that
it's his
works.
dad's
They
house,
have a
but
lot of
I don't
tactics they
know
use to get
because I
through
thought they were
people,
in
and
Lisbon,
again,
but
yeah,
they're
the
in
goal
Bowdoin.
to get them out alive and to pursue justice.
Right. And again, we don't know if Robert Card is inside a home, that home or some other home. There's a tiny chance he's watching television right now. The message from state police and everybody else is turn yourself in. Let's end this right now.
Are you
Get it
working,
over with. Let's
Frosty?
move on. Do it safely. No one else needs to get hurt. Turn yourself in. I think that's the message we heard from multiple law enforcement officials tonight, that if Andrew Card is, excuse me, I keep saying that, Robert Card, Andrew Card was a former official in the Bush White House, so pardon me, Robert Card, if he's somehow in the area and somehow somebody can get a message to him. In fact, we heard another news outlet reporting that a family member had been texting him, attempting to get a hold of him, and with that same message.
What a dumbass.
Turn yourself in. End this. Let's get this over with. This isn't necessary. Let's end this and move on.
Yeah, in the meantime, though, they do consider him to be armed and dangerous,
Correct.
and that is why there's still a shelter in place right
I mean,
now.
a dumbass for a good reason. I mean, the guy's carrying a cell phone on him. Obviously, they know where he is.
Well, today.
Yeah, and we
Which
saw
is where that is.
Exactly. This part of Bowdoinham is very rural. You could go a couple of miles in some areas without seeing another home. So I'm sure a lot of people there are like, maybe I'm safe. But they did want to take the precaution of making sure that they are in a shelter in place. We saw a lot of Saginaw County deputies who are out just patrolling and just doing some door knocks for people, doing welfare checks, making sure people are doing okay. Because again, after the 24-hour mark, this can get kind of old for some people, and they wonder, when is this going to end?
Yeah.
I have no idea if he's in there or
100%,
not.
you can't do that in a situation
But
like
As they said
they were
last night when the shelter in
they were
place
out here
was in
earlier,
effect.
maybe about an hour ago now, and then they left and then they came back. So, and then there was law enforcement saying, "Come out with your hands up." We
Looking
don't,
for updates.
at least
don't
want
want
to
15 minutes or so.
injure anybody. So I'm assuming he's in this house right here. But
Obviously, if
I have no
something
clue.
is starting to happen specific, we're going to stay with that as long as we need to, folks. But for the time being, our thought is to stay with us for a while. You can see there's been a spotlight on this home. And in fact, we see a little bit less lighting than we saw at the beginning of this. It appears just that one spotlight. Some of the blue lights, some of the overhead lights. I think there's a helicopter circling. All right, there it goes.
One light went out.
And it does look like some blue lights are flashing fairly close to the house. That may just be the reflection of some of the lights from the road.
Or did they zoom in perhaps with the camera?
Dan, what are you seeing?
So I'm just I moved off from the desk just to look at the monitor a little bit, and I can see a drone actually moving in and out of the frame over here. It's kind of in the top right-hand corner. You can see the red light blinking in and out, and there's a green light with it as well. And actually now you can
So one
see
thing about this thing
like
here is there's so much misinformation going on. Last night it was all about him being a firearms expert and all of that stuff, but apparently that's not the case.
They're armored and they're used for these type of standoff situations, and that's what that actually looks like in the bottom right corner.
And it looked like that one vehicle was pulling back out of a driveway or something like that. Again, I don't want to, we're all doing the same thing here, folks, which is intently watch what we're seeing on the screen. Difficult to make it out because it's dark. For good reason. The lights are out for the most part.
Still see a spotlight there,
except
too.
for the spotlights, exactly. So, as you said, there have been drones overhead. We've got a strong law enforcement personnel presence there for the moment. It looks like some vehicles may be starting to move, though.
Maybe some movement. It
In
looks
fact,
like
our
they're
camera-
moving
camera
the
looks
camera.
like it's been moved too. Yeah,
They might be on the move as well.
Yeah,
there
I
may
would
be
be
a
on the move.
time where law enforcement is coming up to the line of producers, photographers, reporters who are there and saying, all right, it's time to move back a little bit here, because they may have learned some more information. And obviously these situations are very fluid. So you're seeing the camera move quite a bit there as the photographer tries to move it back. And obviously, hopefully that's for the safety of who's out there tonight.
Yeah, no, all of our crews have to stay safe in this situation.
Law enforcement, our crews, neighbors, everybody needs to be as safe as humanly possible here, given this. Again, if you're just joining us or you're just tuning in, trying to figure out what's going on here, we're following CNN's coverage right now. We have a crew actually very nearby as well, but that camera was we have a sister affiliate up as well, WJAR. So that's who we've been monitoring. They're on the scene there at Meadow Road. That's in Bowdoin. That's at a home connected with the Card family and Robert Card. Dan Lamparello has been on that scene throughout parts of the day today as well. This is more than 24 hours ago that we saw the mass shootings at these two different locations in Lewiston. The manhunt has been ongoing pretty much ever since, and it's been hours, actually coming up on about more than 20 hours since his vehicle was found, abandoned in Lisbon near a boat launch, that they believe the vehicle that was tied to the suspect, Robert Card. So Robert Card is 40 years old. He's considered armed and dangerous. He is currently wanted for 8 counts of murder. As we've been saying, that's likely and going to go up.
So according to one of the news stations up there, WMTW, the FBI is at his home in Bowdoin. So that's where they are right now, I think.
They're trying to gather forensic evidence, et cetera, and then
Notify next of
they'll
kin.
find Mexican as they can. Let's face it, a lot of people carry their IDs in their cell phones, like tucked in the back of their cell phone. If somebody dies and their ID is thrown from them, it can be very difficult for the medical examiner to necessarily immediately know who that person is.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we heard from law enforcement officials this morning in the press conference. Obviously, everybody wants answers right now. We all want to know what all happened here. Why did this happen? The Lewiston Police Chief, David St. Pierre, this morning saying, you got to be patient, got to trust the process. They have such a large police presence up here, hundreds of officers from the local, state, and federal levels, all up here looking for Robert Card.
Yeah, and again, we saw today, far away as Massachusetts. We don't normally see mass state troopers or mass police officers up in our state, even New Hampshire police officers. We see some camaraderie across our borders, but to have them up here and with their guns drawn in some cases, working and going on a grid search throughout rural.
I think it was a note. I don't know if it was a suicide note. That might be true. I don't know. I know there was a note.
Is what hopefully will bring this to a good resolution in the end.
It looks like we have our camera up from CNN again. Can't make out a whole lot. Yeah, not seeing any blue lights in this shot, but again, it could just be that they had to move back, so their perspective may have changed.
And we don't want to disappoint or build up any sort of false impression about what exactly might be happening. To recap that, we don't have any independent information that law enforcement knows for a fact that Robert Card is at this particular home in Bowdoin. What we do know is there are reports that we can see with our own eyes, that law enforcement has reason to believe that they should be on this scene, investigating it, doing their due diligence to make sure that he's not there. So we don't have any, we've all been sort of checking our phones as we talk out here to see if we're getting texts.
I just want to reread, and we wrote it. We brought it up a few minutes ago, but the public information officer for the Maine State Police is the one we've really been getting information from of what's true and what has been speculative out there, and she's been the one who.
Yeah, they had last night, early this morning, they had a New Hampshire state trooper, a helicopter out there helping out too.
Part of the investigation into finding Robert Card. And she says, we're not quite sure whether he is in the home or not right now, but we're just doing our due diligence, and we'll have more to confirm a little bit later on after what goes on here is finished.
And we have seen this before in other situations and other manhunts over the years, standoffs, they have to do their due diligence. They have to clear a certain scene and kind of process of elimination, right? We checked there, he wasn't there, now we move on. We don't know if that's the case. We don't know if he's there, but they're doing what they need to do.
And we do know, some of it from Dan's reporting, that Robert Card knows this area very, very well. He spent most of his life in this area. This is a family that has deep roots in the Bowdoin community. This is a rural community, and it's important to note, if this is a person who's an outdoorsman and that sort of thing, it's reason to believe that he has familiarity with this terrain in this area, and that's advantage him potentially, and that's what law enforcement is trying to overcome and use their advantages to try and track him down.
And listen, one thing I did learn, not to connect his family to him either, is a lot of the neighbors we spoke to out on the Meadow Road area where this is happening tonight, is they were saying, we've been talking to some of the neighbors who are out here, and they are, or some of the family members who are out here, and they're just as devastated as everyone else, shocked that this could have happened to someone in their family. So truthfully, again, we don't know what is going to unfold here tonight.
Let's get actually a little bit of an update too from our colleague Joanna Boris. She's live there on scene in Bowdoin. Joanna, again, we know why your lights are out.
I do want to say I just got a message from Shannon Moss, who is the public information officer for the Maine Department of Public Safety. I just want to read her statement that she just sent out to us. Law enforcement officials are currently on Meadow Road in the town of Bowdoin to execute several search warrants. The announcements that are being heard over a loudspeaker are standard search warrant announcements when executing a search warrant to ensure the safety of all involved. It is unknown whether Robert Card is in
Thank
any
you
of the
again,
homes
everybody,
law
for coming
enforcement
in.
will search. Law enforcement
Thank you,
officials are
Honeybee.
simply doing their due diligence, which he's mentioned a couple times tonight, by tracking down every lead in an effort to locate and apprehend Card.
All right. With that information, Joanna, I don't know if you had a chance to pick up Dan Lamparello there saying that we just got a statement from Maine State Police saying that they're doing their due diligence to search, to execute search warrants. But again, what are you seeing? What can you tell us?
And I think that's true with any situation like that. We never can confirm whether or not the person that is being looked for is actually at the location, but it's looking pretty similar out here. It's very dark out. The only lights you can see are from the helicopters that are circling above us and some drones that we can see far in the distance. Now, I haven't heard any of those announcements that you were talking about earlier. I haven't heard any recently. It's been fairly quiet out here. Again, just seeing the helicopters circling above us, and the only lights we can see are from police cruisers and other media outlets that are out here with us as well. You know, we're keeping our lights off.
I hope this isn't a false alarm. I just do. I just hope they get this guy
Waiting
soon.
to see what is found, waiting to see if the suspect is actually in there. But of course, I'm going to be out here waiting until we get some more
Thank you, Honeybee.
information. Again, this is a house that is a family member of the suspect.
All right. Good to
Back
know.
to you guys.
Joanna Boris, live for us from our sister station, WGAR. Thank you, Joanna. Be safe out there.
One thing I took away from this is that they're saying that they're executing several search warrants here. So this isn't just maybe one home. This sounds like it's a much larger operation. At least that's what Public Information Officer Shannon Moss with the state police is saying here. So it could be one home, multiple homes, but at least multiple search warrants related to Robert Card.
And you said the Card family has a pretty good presence in Bowdoin, so perhaps there are several homes that they're searching.
There are. I mean, the I-team was looking through property records, doing our due diligence to try and find out what the connection was to the town of Bowdoin. And yes, there is a lot of property in that area that is owned by members of the Card family. There's a lot of farmland in that area, a lot of rural homes in that area as well. So it seems like that's what state police are focusing on right now.
In fact, let's show that to the folks at home as you talk about what the area looks like. I think we have a map that we can go to right now. This is the address that we have, 911 Meadow Road. Again, as Dan's been saying, a fairly rural area, a very rural area here in the town of Bowdoin. And Bowdoin being a rural town in general, this is where he's located. I'd also like to, excuse me, this is where the search is located. Let me be clear about that. Also thing I'd like to say, a lot of people out there may be thinking, well, gosh, this guy's been out there for a while. There's so many places he can hide. You know, but if you turn that on its head, given the extent of this search, given the fact that everybody in the area has seen his picture,
Hey, necessarily evil. How are you?
there are a lot of places he can't hide. He has to be in places where either it's a place he knows, or he's like, if he wants to hide under a rock somewhere or under a tree somewhere in the woods, yeah, that's not a place people are going to immediately know he is. But as far as going to like a store to try and get some food, it's, you know, things that you basically obviously have to do as a human being to get some food at some point. There are only so many places this guy can go. And they're, you know, obviously they know it too. Law enforcement knows every single place. They are tracking every bit of thing they can track from his, if he has a cell phone on him, there's no indication he does. They can track that. They can track a credit card that's linked to him. If he tries to do anything, if he tries to hijack a car, believe me, in this day and age, somebody's going to hear about that.
So I'm going to stop this for a second. Okay, so this is where they are here. This is 911. Where was this? Meadow Road in Bowdoin. So this is the exact address here, and this is the house here. So they're probably standing outside the street here. This is where the location is here. This is a pretty good sized house, right? So this is where they are. So let's go back to the live here. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I mean, I can read this over one more
this
time
has
here.
a lot of info in it,
It does. And again, this is from the public information officer with the Maine Department of Public Safety, Shannon Moss. She's been the one who's been sending out most of the official information throughout this process over the past 24 hours. And she says law enforcement, again, on Meadow Road, where we were seeing that really dark live shot,
Let's hope so,
in the town
honeybee.
of Bowdoin to
Sure.
execute several search warrants. And I think that's key to this statement. The announcements that are being heard over a loudspeaker, we haven't heard those on the feed that we've had,
Right.
but
And
I
from a
did.
reporter on scene, they
yeah,
said
I think it happened maybe a little bit earlier in the
Mhm.
evening, but she says there were maybe some announcements made over a loudspeaker. That's standard search warrant announcements. We've heard that at many of the standoffs that we've covered over the years here in our state. And again, executing a search warrant to ensure the safety of all involved. They don't know right now whether Robert Card is in any of the homes. Law enforcement will search, but law enforcement officials are simply doing their due diligence.
And here's another look at what's happening in Bowdoin right now. Again, you can see the home, they have a spotlight on it, and you can see those blue flashing lights. One of the shots we had earlier looked like it was pretty much surrounded by police, kind of a perimeter situation. But again, we don't know if he's there. We don't know how this will end, but this also could potentially just be one of several search warrants that they're going to execute.
Yeah, and we'd obviously hope that back to the point I was making a moment ago, that he has very, very limited, if any, help from the community. Within his circle, we have no information that any friends or family are trying to help this guy. In fact, just the opposite. The things that we've heard are that people are really they're shocked that this is happening. Those who know him, and they're devastated that it's happening, and they are urging him to turn himself in. So the inference is that he's not getting much of any help from anybody independently who might be out there sort of making.
I mean, he could technically be dead. You never know.
Here happening in Bowdoin.
And I will say, just being up in Bowdoin today in that area, there's not many stores or gas stations or anything like that. But the ones that are there, completely deserted. They're all closed today. That whole town, again, on a shelter in place, just like Lisbon, just like Lewiston. So there is not much happening. People are staying in their homes.
There's not many places to go. There's not much reason to leave your home.
Not
it
at
sounds
all.
like.
And his picture is out there. I mean, we've been showing his picture almost nonstop for the past 24 hours.
Several
it's still on our
pictures of him.
website too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's everywhere, as it should be.
Speaking of which, again, our coverage will continue online in the minutes and hours ahead, including coverage of where closings are happening involving schools in our communities in the day tomorrow on our Friday. Also information, resources for parents wondering what to do. Also the latest on exactly what's going on with the search. All of that is at.
All right, so I'm going to go to this other one. This is more local, I think, here.
But given the shelter in place, given the fact that police have said that this person is armed and dangerous, I can imagine that it might put a lot of people who live in that area on edge. Obviously, I defer to them, hearing their personal experience as they live this, but trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the people who might be watching this from across a yard.
Because, that's shelter in place has been for Bowdoin, has been one of those communities. Lewiston, Lisbon, Auburn, Bowdoin, most of Androscoggin County. So these very neighborhoods are what have been under that. I've been told to just stay inside, don't open your doors, lock your cars. That has been the ongoing message from law enforcement.
Guys, I can chime in here. We haven't seen too much of a scene change here, but I can kind of bring you back to kind of what brought us here and how this all began. Law enforcement came here investigating a home. NBC News was reporting in connection to Robert Card. They were executing a search warrant, and that is where they found a note.
You didn't miss much.
Home.
Hey, Perry, how are you?
The one they are at right now.
You didn't miss much.
It was a home
Mickey.
along this road. They found this note, and they were trying
Mexi.
to determine the meaning of this note and how it could potentially guide their
They need more coffee
investigation.
today.
Also earlier today, there were reports of gunshots being fired. This was way earlier. And the Maine Department of Public Safety told us that that was not true. There were no gunshots fired earlier. We arrived on scene, and there were just law enforcement blocking off this road. We chatted with a few neighbors who said that they couldn't drive up the road here. Meadow Road to get to their homes because police had blocked them off. Then we saw law enforcement leave the area. Some were still here. The road was still blocked off, but we saw some law enforcement vehicles leave. And then they came back. And then that's when a member of law enforcement came up to us and asked us to turn off our lights. He said because of a dangerous situation. So because of a potential dangerous situation, all reporters here were asked to turn off their lights. And it's quite the scene here. I know you guys obviously can't see it, but there has to be at least maybe 100 photographers, reporters here. That's why you might hear some noise.
See, the good news is it's late October, so there's no leaves on the trees whatsoever here anymore.
Enforcement believe Robert Card possibly is. We heard them
Hey, Shauna.
a while ago.
How are you,
trying to
Shauna?
speak to.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you, everybody, for coming in.
Who could be in this home. They mentioned him by name, asking him to come out of this home. They said, "We know that you're in there. Come out with your hands up, with nothing in them."
That's what I heard.
They asked him to come out into the driveway and stand in front of a car. They said that they could guarantee his safety and don't want to hurt him. That is what we heard law enforcement communicate to possibly.
Do you think they'd be saying that if nobody was in there? They must know if somebody's in there.
You mentioned this is an interesting scene. It's not something we personally have seen before. I honestly can't tell you the last time we took a standoff live on television.
Yeah, well, it's been years since we've seen a manhunt of this size.
Right.
I think the last time we've seen anything of this scale with the sheer number of police from all over New England was Corporal Cole's murder back in April of 2018. In fact,
All I know is I was watching this along with the Delphi shit earlier, and I was watching agenda-free TV, and they were at this location earlier, probably like an hour and a half ago, and then they came back, and then they brought the helicopter back, and now they've been outside of this house in Bowdoin, Maine, for the last hour or so. And they've been yelling into the house to come out with your hands up. That's all I know.
Maine. He's from Alaska, but he has a lot of Maine in him. He talks about it a lot. And the Bruins, in response to the tragic events in Lewiston, say the Boston Bruins Foundation has created a fund to benefit the families of those affected. And they have actually pledged a minimum of $100,000.
I mean, this just really sucks, right? You go out for a night out. Yeah, that's what I saw too. There's a whole bunch of shit. I don't think anybody really knows what's going on. But I'm just saying, you go out to a bowling alley or out to the bar and grill there, expecting to have a decent night, you get shot. It's just horrible. Just absolutely horrible.
That was for them.
Right.
Well, and it speaks to that so many communities, this resonates for a terrible reason. They've been through it. They know what we are going through. They know what is going on in your home tonight with concerns and fears and the unsettling.
That poor guy last night, he was talking about his son being the manager at the bar and grill, and turns out his son did pass. So it just sucks. It's like, I saw that this morning. It was just heartbreaking to hear that. Just the guy, you could tell, was not well.
Districts all over the state. In southern Maine, relative to Lewiston, that's close, right? But 45 minutes away, there are school districts that are saying, because of the ongoing situation, we are canceling school. There are bigger issues at play than getting people to work and to school. So
absolutely. But at the core of all of this, state police train for this kind of thing. They do respond to other standoffs in the state, perhaps not at this scale, but it's something they train for. Their
Why, honeybee?
negotiators, their crisis
Where you going?
response team. Let us not lose sight of the mental health aspect at play here. Family telling NBC News that Robert Card was experiencing some kind of acute
Jinx.
mental episode just before
It's
this
Jinx,
shooting.
everybody.
And had
She's
a
awesome.
history of mental illness. So the folks who are on the ground there aren't just police in tactical gear that we talk about. It's not just the armored vehicle.
Jinx is from Kentucky. She's got a fantastic accent. Just saying that for. I don't know where Honeybee went. Whoops.
With us. There we go. Please, please. It sounds like there's movement there.
So we just had an officer kind of come up to all of us and ask us if you have a car in the roadway. They want you to move those cars to the side of the road so traffic can move freely. So not sure exactly what that means. They wouldn't share much details. Not sure if that means they're clearing out and it's open to the public now.
That means get your car off the road. That's what that means.
Perhaps those cars are from news outlets really all over the country this evening, right?
Hey, Gail. Hey, Ray.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there has to be close to 100 reporters and photographers at least. So try to picture that, a few of them fit in each of these cars. They're all piled up on this small, skinny road here in rural Maine. And you might have seen a vehicle go across the road here.
Look at all those people.
That is one of
Holy
the armored vehicles that have just come back.
I'm pretty sure that's all press.
It's right next to us now. Adam our photographer that's with me here, he has zoomed out. So this armored vehicle is coming back and trying to get by as the road is filled with TV crews and their cars. So people are trying to adjust that.
These people are so dumb. Just get the hell out of the way.
We hear them speaking, move out of the roadway so this armored vehicle can get through.
Yeah, we're looking at
it down the road here.
We're looking at another angle here too, Alex. We have our colleague Sam Rogers is there with his photographer Scout, and they have another angle here.
Hello, Audrey.
Congested that road is.
It was quite shocking when we first got here to Meadow Road in Bowdoin, just a few hours ago, just how many cars were lined up along this small road. And now that the number of cars have, only increased. And so imagine cars piled up on.
I'm assuming if they have armored vehicles there, that this is not just a warrant, right? Look at all the press. Holy shit.
And photographers here, again, with our lights off. That is why it is so dark here. If you're just joining in now or would like the reminder, it is dark here because law enforcement asked us to turn off our lights because of a dangerous situation. And then they approached this home where they started to call out the name Robert Card, asking him to come out. And we don't know. It has not been confirmed if he is in fact in this home, but we have heard law enforcement say.
I didn't know you were in the UK, Perry. I think Charlotte's in the UK too. She was in there a little while ago.
And there's a hill kind of blocking this home here, but apparently there's a truck in the driveway. That's what law enforcement are saying, and they want Robert Card. They were asking him to come out and stand in front of this truck in the driveway, but we can't see that because of the hill. And we have members of.
This shit doesn't happen in Maine either. I mean, Maine is. I don't think I've ever done any research, but I think, have probably one of the lowest murder rates in the entire country. This stuff here doesn't happen usually in Maine, so this is what makes this bizarre.
Besides the lights from law enforcement, the small, tiny lights of our phones with about 100 law enforcement, 100 reporters and photographers here, just these tiny lights. And of course, we have the moon that's providing some natural light, but of course, as you can see, not a whole lot. And we are wide open here. We are in rural Maine. We're in a driveway of a neighbor that's allowed us all to gather here and kind of watch this scene unfold here in Bowdoin, where Robert Card could potentially be. We don't know. That has not been.
I mean, I hear the helicopter. I can hear the helicopter above. So I don't know.
At least to try to communicate with Robert Card, who they think is inside this home, but they have stopped that for some time now. And we have had a helicopter, as I'm sure you can hear, just circle around constantly. That has been a constant.
If I didn't have to work tonight, I would be up there too, for sure. That's about 3 hours from me.
This home is isolated that we're looking at now. There are no homes exactly next to it. There are neighbors down the road. There's one directly in front of us, a home.
Hello, Frankie Rose. How are you?
You know, you can't help but wonder, what are they thinking tonight? You know, that this is happening right across the street from them, the neighbor's driveway that we're in right now. What are they thinking with, you know, dozens of crews, reporters and photographers in this driveway, checking out this scene? It is quite. No, this isn't the best word, but crazy. It's pretty wild that this is happening.
One thing I think that's important to mention, as Zach brought up earlier, about the crisis negotiators that are involved in this. There are a lot of things that you are seeing and hearing through the images that we're able to bring you right now, and there are a lot of things that you are not seeing. One of those is the crisis negotiators that Zach talked about. What they are trying to do, from my experience of interviewing.
I mean, Maine is such a sparse state, right? You go into like Lewiston, and you know, it's I think there's like 36,000 people there, but then you go east or west of that, there ain't nothing. There's just nobody.
Stress for everybody involved. There are, you know, helicopters overhead. There are flashing lights. There are armored vehicles. There are weapons present. You know, because the law enforcement officers, right? This is already a baseline level of stress that is elevated. So the job that these crisis negotiators have to maintain calm and try to create a connection and a dialogue between somebody who might be in that house in hopes of coming to a peaceful resolution potentially could be a very tall task. What they are asked to do is not an easy feat.
And that is the question. Alex was mentioning it again there, that we don't know if he's in there.
Right.
We don't. There's no indication he is or he isn't. You know, Alex was telling us before he has not personally seen any movement, any indication, the lights on or off.
Frankie Rose, the Think Tank, is a great channel. Check her out. It's great. Very, very good people in there, for sure.
Fields and homes. From just searching some property records, it appears a number of those homes are owned by the Card family.
The beard?
Property,
oh, yeah.
In the Card family.
It's to hide my face.
Had for decades, which is not uncommon in Maine, to have multiple properties under the same family. And speaking of the family, Katie Card, who is married to Robert Card's brother, spoke to NBC News, saying that Robert Card, who was a longtime member of the Army Reserve, started to hear voices that were saying, quote, horrible things about him a couple of months ago, when he was fitted for, I guess, some high-powered hearing aids. And I want to just read this quote from her. He was picking up the voices that he had never heard. His mind was twisting them around. He was humiliated by the things that he thought were being said.
My better half likes my beard, too. It hides my face. I grow a beard so I don't have to see your
Can
face.
you imagine, right, as we just talked about the task of these crisis negotiators, if you were doing that with somebody who was not experiencing this acute or severe mental health issue, right, is already a difficult task. And then to try to overcome some of those other obstacles is just another barrier in the way.
Right. And we did mention that our Sam Rogers is also on scene. We'll give Alex a break for a moment, but we did see some shots from Sam Rogers and their camera there. And Sam, we could just see the sheer number of reporters that are there.
Yeah, Amanda, just to give everyone a little bit of context back home. So we're looking at a group of reporters on that driveway that Alex has been talking about for the last several minutes here. We are up on a different hill. across this rural street, this driveway. The amount of people that you can see there, I don't know how many people Alex has estimated from down here. Up here on the field where we are, there's got to be at least 30 folks, reporters, photographers, everybody. And just to give a little bit more context, because we are a little bit farther back and farther away from the home, this is more of a farm. This is many acres of land. I see some hay bales right behind me. And
I mean, I think it could be this guy might have suffered some sort of a head injury or something like that, because I guess one of the rumors was he suffered a hearing loss or something, so they got him hearing aids, and he was hearing voices. So he might have an issue, obviously an issue, but I'm wondering if he has some sort of a concussion type.
It looks like in one of
brain
those
issue,
grass
maybe.
parking lots, just cars packed on the side, a lot of reporters from all over the country, a lot of freelance photographers, and just people in the area that have heard about this. So we were with our Jack Moment back in Lewiston at the second shooting location from last night, and then we heard about this development going on. So we came over here, as Brian said about 30 minutes ago. It's about a 25-ish minute drive, 15.
Later on, Jinx is going to sing for us.
In our way over here, we were in line with other news outlets, everyone hearing about the news from Lewiston, coming over here, trying to see some more lights coming down the road, but nothing we can make out clearly. Again, we did see those two vehicles leave. Helicopter still flying ahead. It just kind of went out of our camera shot. It's going to be pretty tough to get the helicopter in frame with how dark it is. And as you've been hearing, another reminder, if you're just joining us,
I don't know. I guess it's all just rumor shit, but I heard that I know that he wasn't a firearm instructor now, that he was a petroleum expert or something like that. That's why they were worried about him with explosives and shit. But I did hear that he had hearing aids or something like that. And those hearing aids were causing him to hear voices in his head or something. So I don't know. It could be some sort of a PTSD thing.
Right now, I'm looking over the road right now, but there wasn't any type of rush to get.
I mean, it seems like this guy went down the hill quickly.
That we're looking at. That being said, we want to make sure we kind of see everything that happens, but just saying, telling you guys like it is, those vehicles moving at a very slow speed.
I mean, obviously, it still doesn't excuse killings or unaliving 18 people.
With us for a second, but I'm wondering if the folks in the control booth can pull up that map we have to show what Sam was talking about. I want to just show how close we are to that original scene. You can see Lewiston right there.
Yeah,
on
that's
the
what I
left
heard
side
too,
of your
Terry.
screen.
Thank you, Karen.
Just over I-95. We're talking about 15 miles, a 25-minute drive, as Sam had said, from the point of that initial scene at the Spare Time Recreation bowling alley to where police are now surrounding this home.
Also, not far from that scene in Lisbon, where they found the car at that boat launch.
It's interesting. We had seen an update from Lisbon police about an hour ago. And actually, I should check the timestamp on when they posted it on Facebook. I know we found it about an hour ago, where they announced kind of what the status is in their community from Lisbon police. This is from the chief of police on their Facebook page. The bottom line is really the only change is that there have been some road closures and detours that have been lifted on Route 196. That's Lisbon Street, is it not, in Lewiston?
Yes,
it continues,
correct.
right? So let's not read too much into it, right? Let's not say this is all good news. He's not in Lisbon. We talked about how in Monmouth, right, earlier today, they said there's no credible information to indicate that Robert Card would be in Monmouth, but they still have to leave no stone unturned. I think it's a similar situation here with Lisbon, right, where they can say, okay, we're going to allow these roads to be reopened, but we are still asking you as residents to shelter.
It's very confusing because there's a Lisbon Road in Lewiston, I think, and there's a town called Lisbon, and now they're over here in Bowdoin. So it's this is all over the place here.
Normal procedure for them when they do have to execute a search warrant. We heard them earlier talking over a loudspeaker, but well, Alex, we'll go back to you at the scene here. We have not heard police speak over the loudspeaker in a while, and it is interesting that they are asking for that light cutoff.
Amanda, and I wanted to add to that because I was chatting with my photographer here. It also was interesting. I don't know if it's notable or not, but we did see a little while ago some law enforcement vehicles leave the area. They were asking folks to move their cars because, as Sam Rogers mentioned, there's just a lot of them packed here. It is kind of like your local fair. All these cars lined up along the road. That is the perfect way to describe the situation. So it is interesting that some vehicles left, and it's been quiet. We have a few vehicles here from law enforcement. We still have that helicopter above us continuing in its circular pattern. We have lights shined on this home of interest here where Robert Card could potentially be. And want to remind folks, because it's been so long, when we heard police speak, they were saying, Robert Card, we know you're in there. We want you to come out with your hands up with nothing in them. They were asking him to stand in front of this truck that's in the driveway. We can't see the driveway just because of how the land is here. There's this hill blocking a home, so we can't see very much of this home.
Yeah, I think there's still a shelter-in-place order in Lisbon and Lewiston, but I could be wrong about that. This is classic. Another reason not to date. Yeah, don't date anybody, especially like this. So I'm going to go, what I want to do here is I want to go back to the map. Map time. So this is where they are again. This is Bowdoin here. And if I zoom out here, this is Lewiston here. This is where the shootings took place. There's Lisbon Falls. So he's a good 20 minutes away from, this is about 20 minutes away from, but the scary thing here is here's 295. So, you know, if he gets out to 295, he could be gone for a long time. All right, so let's get out of here and go back to this here.
I'll remind you, you might hear some other voices. Oh, I'll let you go ahead, Brian.
It's Zach here. Alex, you spoke to neighbors earlier. What were they saying about the family and about Robert Card himself?
Yeah, Zach. So I was chatting with an older gentleman who was parked.
I heard he's been married twice, divorced twice, or something.
This road here. So he was saying that he knows the Card family, that they're really nice, amazing people, and he is just shocked that this could happen. He was just stunned.
Yeah, that
you could
sucks.
really just see it on his face, shocked as we all are in this situation. And he says he was waiting along this road in his truck with his dog for hours, hoping to get by law enforcement to get to his home for this road to open up,
right?
Which has not for quite some time
and
now. So
when you're in a bowling alley or like a bar and grill like that, you're pretty much trapped. If somebody comes in with that kind of a gun, you have absolutely no place to go. It's just you're literally in a box. So with that type of weapon, you can fire off quite a bit of rounds.
Confirmed dead out of these two shootings in Lewiston. And Zach, you actually spoke with some family members today.
Yeah, several of us have reached out to loved ones and family members who have shared a lot of different memories. We've talked to coworkers of folks. We've talked to folks that coached sports alongside people. Ron Morin, for example, was a softball umpire who friends really remembered him as a guy who always had a smile on his face, would offer a huge hug and was just such a great person. And that's what you hear over and over and over again when these kinds of things happen, right, in other parts of the country. But it really is true. In this case, we had Peyton Brewer Ross, who worked at BIW. Bath Iron Works, General Dynamics, and BIW sharing a statement with us today that all of us at Bath Iron Works are heartbroken to share that we've lost a member of our BIW family. We send our deepest condolences. Thoughts and prayers are with those families and friends.
And of course, Trisha Aslin, we know, was bowling last night when this happened. We heard from some of her friends and family. Joshua Seal there, we heard from his wife a little bit, or Arthur Stroud, I'm sorry, is who we heard from his wife, but Joshua Seal, we know, a victim. Bob Violette, Joseph Walker. Joseph Walker, also known as Joey, was the son of that Auburn City councilor. And we heard from him last night. Our Jack Molmid spoke with him of just how difficult it was to not know, but knowing deep in his heart.
Yeah, that is a little
that his
interesting
son
that
was
it was
among the
mostly
victims because they
guys
had not
that
heard
got
from him.
shot.
Joey Walker, there, the manager.
I don't know how true that is, but it seems like the majority.
Spoke to Lester Holt earlier, remembering his son as a guy who loved that establishment, was there to have fun, loved the cornhole tournaments, and folks gathered that night after work. We've been talking about that it was an industry day, a day they were given a little bit of a discount to go in and have a beer and a bite to eat, and just enjoy themselves. And obviously he was in a place that he loved, and this happened.
And we briefly mentioned Joshua Seal. I do want to say his wife, Elizabeth, did post to Facebook that he was just the world's best father to our 4 pups. Loved spending time with them, traveling, going for a day trip to the beach or going camping for the weekend. Not only was he an amazing father, he was a wonderful husband, my best friend, and my soulmate. Just incredible to hear these words.
I mean, if I had to guess, Frankie, I would think he's probably dead. But that's just my opinion. I have no idea. But I'd probably put it at like 60-40 that he's dead.
Movement here. We all obviously want to be careful not to give away law enforcement position in case Robert Card is in this home watching our coverage. We always have to be careful of that. But we just saw this armored vehicle that was in the road across from this home of interest, pull into the driveway, and it was quite the scene. We saw many members of law enforcement follow outside of this vehicle, follow this vehicle into the driveway. So they are definitely on foot, doing their thing, handling the situation the way law enforcement does. So we are definitely seeing some movement here. So not sure exactly what they're going to do next, but the scene is changing. But over by us, and it's still us just watching with our lights off. Law enforcement came to us a while ago and asked us to turn our lights off, all our cameras, because of a dangerous situation. And then they started approaching this home saying, Robert Card, we know you're in this home. Come out with your hands up with nothing in them. They were communicating that to Robert Card, who could be in this home or he could not be in this home. We do not have that confirmed. And we do have this helicopter again. You can hear that constantly. But that is the scene right now. Things moving here a little bit, still shining light on this home here in.
This is 9/11.
Viewers, the image you're looking at right now.
Hold on
is
a second.
from,
9/11 Meadow.
NBC
I just
News
had
that's
it.
also there. And basically, you're seeing that line of vehicles that Alex has been talking about are down the road. And this, we know this is tough to see at home because it is so dark, but it speaks to
Meadow.
what this environment is right now for all those people who are there.
Meadow Road
We
in
know there's a
Bowdoin, Maine.
large number of members of law enforcement there. We know there's a lot of media there, and they are essentially in the dark. At the request of law enforcement that those lights go off, and really all we're seeing is the flickering of those police lights, and then an occasional light on the house where they're concentrating their attention. That's what you see right now. and the trees. And Alex has been describing what this area looks like, that they're kind
Mackie is a map genius, literally.
There's a tree line to the right as well, and then more fields in the distance. And as Zach was telling us, public records show that the Cards are a known family there. They own a number of properties, and not uncommon in Maine for, once upon a time, the family owned a farm and it was broken up and there were houses built on it. So, this is certainly a neighborhood that anybody who grew up in the rural part of the state, as we did, we are familiar with what this looks like, even though it is very difficult to see tonight.
As a matter of fact, Brian,
Exactly. Exactly, Perry.
I'm going to double check myself here, but I believe.
Not to mention the people that got to live with this. That's, losing somebody like this,
It's one of the category breakdowns here in the tax logs here at that particular property. I don't know. I am by no means a law enforcement officer. I have no real, deep knowledge of tactics and.
So we'll go here again for Mexi. So this is his house. So this is where they are, right here. And if I get out of here, this is it here. This is the boondocks, literally, But, you go, 20 miles west, and now you have Lewiston, and you go, a few miles here, you're right on 295, then you get to 95, and this is the coast here. So it's very rural in Maine. I mean, there's very little. Let me go back to the live here.
Same thing that we are, just trying to understand and watch what's happening. All eyes are on Bowdoin tonight, on the street, on this home where Robert Card could possibly be. And I've just been watching this home and just seeing lights move around. They're shining a light in a window. That is all we can see right now. And I heard Chris mention, something that might benefit law enforcement in this case is that it's wide open. It's not tight, homes next to each other. It's just this home with some trees around it. It's hard to see what it's like behind the home. I do see some trees, but it's hard to understand how close they are to this home. But we haven't seen much change except law enforcement get closer, shining that.
I mean, I don't think this is a normal search warrant here. There's obviously something going on here.
Of a hill here blocking this home, so it's hard for us to really see everything that's happening.
Yeah, and Alex, I know you can't see the picture we're currently showing from another camera on the scene there, but it looks like state police and then some kind of other law enforcement unit. More of the tactical teams. It looks like an officer putting on a weapon there. I believe.
What I don't understand is if he ditched his car in Lisbon, right, the white Subaru, how he got up here.
Sam, rather, if you can hear me, can you just paint a picture for viewers about what this has been like just over the last 24 hours here?
Yeah, Zach, and just really quickly, just because we do have the higher ground on Alex, just the latest we've seen, that tactical truck moved in, seen some different spotlights every now and then. But I mean, it's been more than 24 hours of just grief and confusion and frustration from all over the state. And you guys showed a map on screen showing Bowdoin, Lisbon, Lewiston. Those were the three communities clearly impacted the most from all of this, and that is where we've been spending a lot of our attention. I was in Lisbon Falls.
See, that's the strange thing, because last night when I was listening to it, they pointed out a black pickup truck that was seen somewhere around the area where he ditched the Subaru, and the truck had blinking hazards on, and this was coming from the scanner. So the scanner was saying that that might be somebody that he knows or somebody that's helping in this thing, and then I haven't heard anything about it since. But I know they were looking for a black truck with blinking lights, and they actually sent cops over to check that out.
Coming
So, I
in,
don't know.
but there was just that added intensity. And again today, throughout the evening, I was telling folks that when you just looked into people from Lewiston in their eyes, you could just feel that sadness. And these are people who were safe, family safe, friends safe. Maybe once we start to learn more of the victims, may have a better connection, but just so hurt and crushed by this entire process. And just to kind of rewind things here from the scene in Bowdoin, I want to say it was about 10-ish minutes ago when those two law enforcement vehicles, a state police cruiser and a tactical truck, again, slowly made their way through a very narrow road all the way back to get closer to a main road here in town. And then about 5.
Yeah, this isn't a normal search warrant at this point.
Closer to the home, Scout was able to look through the viewfinder. I don't know if we had that shot up on air, but from our camera viewfinder, we did see armed law enforcement officers walking towards the area of the house. Some more lights coming on. The helicopter still in that similar loop, and none of the reporters here, again, the dozens of reporters and cameras and photographers here, no one has left. If anything, it actually just in the past like 10 seconds, everyone's really kind of stopped talking, and we're starting to see more lights. And Scout, if you can turn the camera around.
I would just jump in here, Sam, really quickly and tell you that there are certain things that we are not showing specifically because we don't want to jeopardize what police are doing on scene. Just want to clarify that with you, that we are not on your camera right now just because we don't want to jeopardize what's going on there.
Wow.
But what we are seeing are cars moving in and out.
You don't want to, yeah, there is a big procession here. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cruisers. Scout's gonna get a better angle here, and then Alex and Adam, if you guys want to turn your camera to your left, everyone's kind of getting down on the road. It looks like this first vehicle is a tactical truck. Again, as they're slowly making the way, and once they get closer to the camera, you'll be able to see how tight of a road this is, and how many reporters are truly here. We'll let the helicopter sound we'll take a pause here and just kind of see what happens.
Yeah, this is a tactical vehicle here, so this is not just a search warrant.
If anyone at home is wondering, we cannot see into any of these windows. We're about 20 yards up on that hill.
As you can tell, these are vehicles that are leaving.
Frankie's awesome.
Yes, Amanda. We were able.
The quote of the day. Oh shit.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we just saw a bunch of lights and floodlights pop up behind the home, and then we started to see this procession. This is the road that we came up. So yes, in theory, these cars are making their way out. Again, I'm whispering right now. It's very quiet. Again, we don't know if any suspect is inside any of these vehicles. Don't know which one it would be. Again, we can't see inside.
This is so weird. Like, they have all of these press people around while they're trying to, subdue a suspect. And it's.
Yeah, there's again, you can see now how tight the cars are on both sides. It goes this way for probably almost a quarter of a mile. So this is going to take a while for all these vehicles and law enforcement officers to get back onto a main road here in Bowdoin.
And we are continuing to wait word from public safety officials about why they may be clearing this scene here in Bowdoin. I know it's been a few hours now, right, that they have been at this scene, or it was a little after 7 o'clock that they had told our reporter Alex Haskell to turn the lights off. So interesting to see things moving out now.
Yeah, and you can see the sheer number of reporters there, but let's also not lose sight of the number of law enforcement personnel that have been brought into the state. We were told earlier by Michael Soschuk, the commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, that over 350 law enforcement personnel are on this case, taking part in this manhunt. I spoke earlier in the day to Congresswoman Shelley Pingree.
Hello, Miracle Hearts. How are you? Thank you for coming in.
The FBI, of course, is involved in this, including the same teams that were responsible for catching the Tsarnaev brothers after the Boston bombing incident. So all resources being brought to bear here tonight. And right now it's obviously unclear whether or not they were successful in apprehending anyone from that house tonight.
And a few comments today, actually, from viewers that there was...
The good news is it's nice and warm up here over the last couple of days. So, I mean, it's not freezing out yet.
That there was just such a concentration of, we need to find these people, we need to understand what's going on, don't leave your homes. And that was the closest thing that some people could relate it to, was the closest feeling that we have experienced necessarily of that. And just a very different experience. But, we're still looking at this property in Bowdoin right now, where there are clearly at least some officers there. We see their lights on. We see the lights on the house there as well. But the mystery question tonight remains, was he in there?
Right.
This would be really depressing if he's not in there.
Somebody else by phone. Do we understand? Did that kind of caravan of vehicles leave the scene?
Yes, they were leaving.
Snow is a 4-letter word, Frankie. We don't want snow yet.
With our reporters on scene there again, and Alex, can you kind of set the stage for us on what the scene is like now? It's now that so many vehicles have cleared out.
Yeah, I would say the scene is kind of the same from what we can see. The road is still dark. They're still shining some lights on this home. I want to mention, when we saw all those law enforcement vehicles leave, Sam Rogers was speaking with you, but I joined a group of reporters and photographers who ran up along the road, and other reporters and photographers.
Yeah, it's about, I think they said 4 miles, but it's like 10 minutes to get to each of the shooting locations. But again, I may be wrong.
Lights, and this does not mean that he's not in those vehicles, or was, but I just could not make out any faces. So that was a scene where kind of getting ourselves collected again,
Yes.
all focused on this home where things are quiet and still. Once again, on Meadow Drive here in Bowdoin, we still have some cop lights up the road here, and then just the armored vehicle, and possibly another one in the driveway of this home here. And
yeah, Florida's the place where people go to escape snow and ice and cold.
Gathered in a neighbor's driveway, right where I am on the right side of the road, and on the left where Sam Rogers is. That is a part of the many large fields here along this stretch of road, because we are in rural Maine with some tree lines off in the distance.
Most of my family's in Spring Hill, Florida.
It's really interesting just standing here, being in the dark with all this equipment. It's normally all lit up. We have lights on so that you can see us reporters and make out some of the landscape while we're doing our reports, but that is not the case in this situation. As we were told, it's a dangerous situation. That's what law enforcement told us. For that reason, we had to turn off.
I'll probably go till about 9, and then I got to get out of here and go to work.
And I'm looking at all the people here, and all their faces are kind of glowed up as we're looking at our phones here. It's an interesting.
I think they call that a programming update.
Changed. We still have just some lights shined on it, and that's about it right now. Not sure if it's worth mentioning, but kind of want to remind folks what brought us here in the first place.
I think it could be two things with the time frame. It might be that those were the only two places open or with lights on, so he just decided to go to those two locations, or it was pre-planned and he wanted to go to those two locations right along. He might have had issues with, I don't know. I think this might be very similar to the shooting in California with the guy that went in there and shot his ex-wife. Remember? I think that was a few months ago. But who knows at this point? He's just sick.
Tonight, but they were trying to communicate with someone maybe inside who they said is Robert Card. They were saying that they know that you're in there, come out with your hands up with nothing in them. They wanted him to come out into the driveway with his hands up. They were also saying that we can guarantee your safety. We don't want to hurt you. So those were some of the things that we were hearing from law enforcement, but that was some time ago. We have not heard law enforcement speak again for some time. And of course, we saw many vehicles here clear out. And the big question is, another big question is why they were clearing out.
Well, that's a great question, Alex, because as you mentioned, it was a little after 7 o'clock that police had come up to you and the other reporters and said, this is a dangerous situation. Please turn your lights off. At this point, we have no reason to believe it's not still a dangerous situation.
I don't know if they could use tear gas or not. I'd have to look that up. But if they can, I'm surprised that they haven't yet. But you never know. Like necessarily Evil said up here somewhere that he might have somebody in there with him. So
Shining a light in windows, so that is some movement and activity that we haven't seen for a little bit. So they are moving a light around on this home. And I have to wonder, what neighbors are thinking. We've mentioned it, that it's rural Maine. There are some fields here, so there aren't many homes in this area, but there are some homes. We are in a neighbor's driveway. It was an older couple that we spoke with earlier. They, we were just asking if we could stand in this driveway. They didn't want to share anything else with us, but what they thought about the situation. But it was an elderly.
Yeah, I heard that too about the flashbang grenades for sure. But I don't know. Like I said, the information is so bizarre.
Home in front of us on the same side of the road that we're on, a little past this home of interest. They have their lights on, so you can help but wonder kind of what's going through their minds.
Right.
But luckily, we have no homes located near this one home of interest here.
I can't imagine that couple is asleep based on all of the activity outside. But hopefully, to your point, Alex, hopefully heeding that warning of shelter in place. And police have been asking people all day in Bowdoin and in Lisbon and in Lewiston to shelter.
I mean, I'm not sure about this, but I would think that up there in that part of the country here, they probably have, definitely have basements, and who knows if they got tunnel systems that run through here.
Speculation, but I think it's important to note some reporting by our media partners at the Press Herald earlier today talking about one of the other homes on that road that owned by the Card family. They were told by neighbors that it's been vacant for some time, so that's another possibility as well. But of course,
yeah, like I said before, I got on here. They were here earlier, about an hour. What is it now? It's almost 9 o'clock. So about 2 hours ago they were here, and then they left. The helicopter left, maybe to gas up or something. I don't know. But then they came back, and that's when all of this stuff started happening.
Law enforcement officials have been involved in this search for Robert Card, and Chris, you've been speaking with some of these law enforcement officials too.
Yeah, and actually, just most recently, I've actually been speaking with some friends of these victims, people who have been listening to our coverage, and just for whatever reason they picked me to send some messages. But they're talking about, for example, somebody who went to high school with Ron Morin, that softball umpire, merchandiser who would work with the local Hannaford supermarkets to get them supplied. And this person's telling me that he was a great man, father, husband, friend, one of the best people this person's ever met. Everything you hear about him is true, according to this person. They went to high school together. Also hearing some other details that we really need to work to confirm about other information related to some of the victims. And as we get more concrete details, we'll bring those to you. But again, out of respect for the family, it's just, and the people involved, people who know them, we need to wait before we put some of those details out there. I know that for a lot of people who are reading things on social media, it's, well, wait a minute, we know.
Karen Lee is absolutely awesome.
His brother or their daughter has said this person's passed away or they're in the hospital. It is so difficult in this age where anybody can create any social media account, steal pictures from the internet and claim to be somebody else, which is why we have decided to be so sensitive and delicate about how we put out this information.
I just found out I had a channel yesterday too, Mickey. Literally.
Right, and Chris, we're now seeing some movement here in this field that Alex has been talking about that separates the reporters and this home.
I was just going to jump in, guys, real quick. We are seeing some movement, not too much, but just some law enforcement members coming from the home, walking across this field here, back onto the road. They look like they are in some heavy gear.
Thank you, Frankie.
Walking back to their vehicles. But they are still shining some lights on that home of interest here where they believe or had suspected that Robert Card was
thank you, Karen.
staying, and we can see a dog. I don't know if you guys can make that out, but a member of law enforcement has a dog with them, and they were just coming from that home and now putting that dog back in the car, and law enforcement walking back up the road. So that's what we're seeing here now. Things have kind of quieted down. We're just all kind of watching to see what happens.
Anybody can link any of the channels in here. I don't mind. I don't care. Frankie's awesome. Think Tank. Hoosier Cold Case is great.
Right, is that if we, again, without speculating, when we see sort of a convoy of vehicles leaving the scene, a lot of people will jump to the assumption that, oh, well, they're no longer searching in there. He's not in there, or he was never in there. We don't know that. We cannot say that with certainty. And so it's just important for everybody to kind of keep that in mind, that, you know, regardless of what we are seeing through these images, you know, they are likely taking the same approach.
I mean, there could be some sort of a shift change going on here too.
Keep in mind that these law enforcement officers, when they are responding to these scenes, you know, going to a address that they believe this suspect could be in, they're coming at this from a reactionary standpoint. When they enter that home, they don't know what is inside. They've never been inside this home. They don't have a floor plan of the home. They don't know where any potential suspect could be in that building, which is what makes it difficult for them, because this is all reactionary.
And we heard some of that from the spokesperson for public safety as well.
Right. So the last notice we got from Shannon Moss, who's the public information officer for the Maine Department of Public Safety, was at 6:02. So just about 3 hours ago now was the last official note we got from there, saying law enforcement is at a home in Bowdoin, which is the scene you're looking at right here, as part of the investigation into the Lewiston shootings and the search.
Like I said, how he got here, I don't know, because I mean, it's rural in Maine, so you know, like 20 minutes is not, you know, like everybody says a country mile. It's really 20 minutes. You know, you have to. It's not like you can walk there. So I just don't know how he got here.
And Alex was there, and Alex could hear much better than we could on that loudspeaker. Alex, some of what police were saying, what were you hearing out there?
Yeah, so they said Robert Card. That was the first thing they said. They said his name, Robert Card. We know you're in there.
Yeah, I had the flight radar up earlier, and then I clicked off of it because I was going to go do something else, and then all of this shit happened. So, and I don't think I can get on to that now without screwing everything up. So
Times that there's a little bit of a hill blocking this home in the driveway, so we can't see a truck, but we heard law enforcement mention that truck and ask Robert Card to stand in front of it. We also heard law enforcement say, we can guarantee your safety and we don't want to hurt you. So those were some of the things. We are a little ways away, so sometimes.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything else about that black truck. it's bizarre how they said that. Maybe it had nothing to do with it, but it came from the scanner. So, and it was right in the same area that the car was found.
Continuing to listen and have our eyes on. And the scene is constantly changing. You know, we have some vehicles moving right now. We still have that helicopter. You might be able to hear it in the background. That is something that's constant. And kind of behind us here, where we saw law enforcement leave earlier, we still have some law enforcement vehicles that we thought left, but they are still here. I can only see 2 right now, so that doesn't mean they all left. There are still some here. And
like I said, 60-40. I have a hard time believing he just got into a car and drove out here. If he's here in Bowdoin, like, it'd be more likely that he had somebody drive him here, or I don't know.
There, but we are staying in constant communication with the Maine Department of Public Safety. Their Public Information Officer Shannon Moss. Her last update was at 7:52, so about an hour ago, a little over an hour ago, reminding us that those calls we heard that.
Yeah, I got a $3,000 Shepherd and a Boxer.
Out for his arrest, I believe 8 at last check is what police were telling us, based on the number of fatalities in which they had identified the individuals. So again, the loudspeaker things that we were hearing and that we had here on our air, and what we were seeing police do is standard protocol. State police admitting that it is unknown if Robert Card was in the home, but that again was at 7.
I'm about 3 hours away from where this is, so I mean, if I really wanted to, I could probably get there in like 2.5, 2:45.
Out to be what it appears, that the suspect they're looking for is not in that home. This is, just kind of another layer to the people who are staying in their homes tonight as part of this shelter-in-place order, wondering when that order will be lifted. When can they resume normalcy in their lives?
I don't know. It seems like something's going on.
Is that places like, for example, the Auburn Lewiston YMCA, all locations will be closed until Monday, October 30th. That's through the weekend, right? Many places that we've seen otherwise, like Central Maine Community College, that's for tomorrow. Lewiston Public Schools, that's for tomorrow. This is the first one that I've seen that said we're going to go proactively all the way through the weekend. I don't know if that's a planning purpose. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but the bottom line is, there is this. Oh, sorry, I was hearing some scratching on the microphone. No, just, there's this uncertainty that people are living with right now. Right. And this is going to be very difficult.
Absolutely, not just for folks in that community, but even more so for the families of these victims tonight. Because it's a sense of closure, right? We talk about that difficult healing process that we, frankly, as a community, as a state, have not even started yet. We're still in the thick of it now.
Still waiting for this.
We are going to check in with News Center Maine Sam Rogers.
Yeah, that's good that they found him.
Alongside Alex Haskell, has been reporting on this for the last 24 hours. Sam, what are you seeing there now?
Yeah, hey, Zach. So we are down the road where we saw that procession of vehicles, law enforcement vehicles move. We're seeing a big truck here. Once when it passes it by, we can try to see what it says. Yeah, this is one of the tactical trucks. That is, it was tough to see the markings on it, but another wave of law enforcement trucks. Alex, I believe these are the trucks that you said that you started to see moving. So again, we are about halfway down, and I'm just hearing from my photographer Scout, who said those were out of state law enforcement vehicles. She saw New Hampshire and a Massachusetts truck, and those were Massachusetts plates, I believe, on that last cruiser that walked by, that drove by. And similar to what we saw about 20 minutes or so with those Maine law enforcement vehicles with the lights on pass through, similar number of vehicles just passing by. Again, we're kind of halfway down this road. If you're still taking our camera shot or you saw those trucks drive by, you can, again, just kind of really get a better angle, probably the best angle on how narrow the road is. Alex, not sure if people are clearing out where you are, but we're starting to see some reporters head back to their vehicles and head out as well.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I got to get the hell out of here. I want to thank everybody for coming in. I got to get ready for work. If this is still going on in the morning, early in the morning, like 4 or 5, I'll come back on. But again, I want to thank everybody that came in: Karen, Necessary Evil, Frankie, everybody, Honeybee. Let's see here. We got Dandy, Hoosier, Frosty, Mecky, Perry, Necessary Evil. I think I just said that. Everybody that came in, thank you very much. Let's hope they catch this piece of crap tonight or soon. Everybody stay safe. It's crazy out there. So just try not to go bowling in the next couple of days. Dandy, thank you for coming in. Everybody have a great night. Danielle, and Charlotte, of course. Whoever was in here, thank you. Shauna, everybody. Subscribe to everybody's channel. Karen, of course, Karen Lee. And I will see everybody later. Thank you guys again. Let's hope this guy gets caught. Thank you.